All right, welcome back to episode 5 of season 3 of JV Speaks. Super excited to be here with you guys. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about capitalizing on opportunities. So I think that's something that's really been important to JV Studios' success. So I kind of want to hear from the guys on how this mantra, right, of capitalizing on opportunities has, led to the success in the business.
Yeah, I'll start. I think when we first started JV, we kind of took everything on. Maybe people may call us yes men in that point. Like, we didn't like to say no to clients. We also were still trying to figure out what we wanted to do. So I think in the early days, by almost saying yes to a lot of projects, we were able to build a super diverse portfolio of work that when projects started coming up years down the road, it's like, oh, we've done something like that. We've done something like this. So I think taking those opportunities was a huge strength for us, just to kind of run with it. And then eventually I think we started figuring out what our strengths lied.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, I guess, talking more about like the diverse body of work. But if you want to just shed light, I think more on opportunities in general.
Yeah, I think, there's a timeliness to things, and really when striking when the kettle's hot, if a client needs something, you got to have a realization that you're not the only one that they're asking. Oh, sometimes you are, but for the most part, especially in the beginning, in the infancy stage of that relationship, there may be 3 to 5 other people that they're also going to be reaching out to. And if you're not first, you're last. So for us, it's like, if someone needs something, we try to get to them as quick as possible. We kind of have this idea of like, let's stop, drop, and like, let's make sure that number one, we're at least addressing them back, acknowledging. And I know that's something that you kind of fast acknowledgement, slow response of like, hey, this is received. And kind of what we like to do now is just schedule a meeting. Hey, this is received. This sounds like something really, really interested in. Do you have time to schedule a meeting? And what that does is just buys a little bit of that time so that we can talk about it, address it, and open that line of communication.
Yeah. You make a good point. I think talking about, right, the power of now, right, being quick in your response and in getting stuff done for the client. I think that has obviously been critical to success. When you're doing that from a pre-production to a sales and in post-production, I mean, I know there's, opportunities, right, not just from a sales and helping your client, but in how you're actually executing the project. And as we say, moving mountains, how does that kind of capitalizing opportunities, moving quick, the power of now, how do you embody that in the actual production from, the sales process all the way through post, Vince, when you're in that?
I think we treat every client as if we haven't even won their business yet. And I know we talked about that even yesterday. Like, we're always going to approach an opportunity as if we never work with that client, meaning we're going to be on our game. We're going to show the care of like, hey, we want this business. We want to address it. And I think it carries into eventually the production process. And then on the back end, I don't think we've ever really been late with a deliverable. So coming up with the schedule, making sure it's realistic, kind of always that under promise, over deliver mentality, I think has been huge for us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, like, we live in a fast paced world. I mean, you have email on your cell phone now. So like John said, fast acknowledgement, slow response. I actually, when I was on an airplane one time, I sat next to a business guy, suited up. Yeah. I'm on the window seat, and we got to know each other. And I was like, hey, like what do you do? And it's like, oh, I'm a sales guy, I fly all over. And I was like, hey, can you give me a piece of advice of like clients? Because at the end of the day, every business kind of it's a formula. So whether you're selling stuff or you're selling a service, or you have a coffee shop, it's supply and demand. It's treating customers right.
Right.
And that was the one thing he told me. He said, listen, client, someone that reaches out, even acknowledging them, though you may be tied up, like if we are on set and an inquiry comes in, we're still going to fire off an email letting them know, hey, this was received.
Right.
It shows that we're not just putting them off to the side. It's not important. However, we may be busy. So you kind of establish somewhat of a boundary. But 9 times out of 10, if one of us receives that inquiry, we're going to respond very quick. And I think we've, got awarded a lot of jobs even recently these last 2 years because clients are like, oh my God, I reached out to 5 companies. You guys were the first one to respond.
Right.
And I think that alone speaks volumes of how you run a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they want to be taken care of. Yeah. I mean, they are the client. They are the customer. They're reaching out to you, the professional. They want to be taken care of. I know before this, while we were prepping, we had an email come through. And right before we sat down, I didn't say it, but I'll say it now. What do I see? A response from you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's huge. To talk about production stuff, right? When it comes to timelines, okay, we get a project. I mean, this just happened. We get something that kicked off. All right, let's get it moving. The first thing that we're going to do is let's set the dates. But let's not set the date for 6 months from now. How early can we do it? So our pre-production process can, go from 2 weeks to 2 months. But realistically, if we have this timeline, it's like, all right, cool. Let's set a date. Let's get it. Let's get accountable. Let's get it on paper, and let's get it done. I think that's the power of now to answer that question.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think that's a good segue into not only, are we, acting quickly. I think we're acting with, great confidence and an understanding of what, our end goal is. So another thing we kind of live by, is almost like you said, kind of along the under promise, over deliver, doing what we say and saying what we do. So talk a little bit about how when we're on a client or a client has a request, how we're going to be honest and transparent and say, hey, this is not possible in this scope, or, hey, this is what we need to do to make it happen. And then being able to give that client that experience of, damn, they did what they said and they did it quickly and they got back to me.
Well, I think it's being realistic about it. We have that one client years back. See if you can rattle it off.
Good old client said, DWSYWD, DSWYSYWD.
Yeah.
Do what you say you will do. And that was
Shout out JB Training.
That was, we shot some videos and hearing that, from one of our clients who does the same thing, kind of coaching other businesses on leadership styles. It's like, that's half the battle is literally doing what you say you will do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, maybe are afraid to act quick because they're not set up for it. They get overwhelmed because maybe all these inquiries are coming in and they don't have a team that's there to support the load. So it's like, I need to really take time in that. And, we're in a very competitive space, right? A lot of people make amazing videos. And, there's some people that, we work with sometimes that it takes a week to get back to. And granted, that's one of those things where I think we see that as an advantage. Though we may not win the job, our response time is so quick that it's always that, like, it's respect.
Yeah.
It's treating them like, this company, whether they're available or not, responded.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, I think we get a lot of people that aren't from Chicago. They do a random Google search. We're definitely one of many companies that probably pop up. They look at the website. They're like, they're in line. We get the inquiry. And how many times, Tim, have you heard a client, and you too? Yeah. I just reached out to 5 people, and honestly, you guys are the first to respond and the only to respond. I mean, whether we're taking the job or not, like, I think that there's like a value add to that, even if it's not in line.
Yeah.
Which I think
it kind of reminds me of, we're big into food analogies, right? So, you call a restaurant, you want to go to a restaurant. How many times you call, you want to make a reservation, want to go there, and you just call and it rings, and it rings, and it rings, and it rings, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I could go to that restaurant and wait and see if there's a line, or I'm going to call a different restaurant, and I want food. So, people are calling us because they want video. The least we could do is answer the phone, give them information, be transparent, and be a good partner. And you know what? If they choose to go a different direction, great. If they choose to work with us, let's crush it for them. So I think it's, that this mentality has done well for JV, over the past, dozen years.
Yeah. And to piggyback, I think there's something important to point out here in the whole do what you're going to say you're going to do. And it's being able to have processes.
Yes.
I think when you have a structure and an organization and a process to the way that you handle these things, it just makes you that much more efficient. So instead of just, saying, oh yeah, no problem, I'll follow up next week, or that sounds good, I'm going to send her a fruit basket, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z, you need to hold yourself accountable. It's one of my favorite things. It's like, taking notes or being in a meeting, but then setting action items. So like one of the things for me is like, and I know we talk about it, it's like a do list and a do list, right? So it's like, when is it due and when are you going to do it?
Yep.
So
I didn't know where you're going with that.
Yeah, DUE and DO, right?
Respect.
Yeah. So it's like, for me, I love that because, if I say, cool, I'll follow up with you next week. Well, in my way that I have my processes drawn out, I make sure that on my calendar, it is a DO, it's execute. Execute it then.
Right.
Follow up with that person.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's like, well, you're not, be firm in your yes and be firm in your no.
Right. Right.
Do it.
I mean, the other thing too, with like, as part of our pre-production process is to establish a post-production timeline, right? And we're very transparent about that rather than saying, hey, your video will be in 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
It's like, okay, why does it take that long? Well, we very much detail out, okay, this process is done during week 1. This is done during week 2. This is done during week 3. So one, it holds us accountable.
Yeah.
And then it gives the transparency to a client who maybe is an expertise in video production, be like, hey, why is it taking 4 weeks to get this video back to me? And you're like, they don't understand the complexities that can go to color grading. And I mean, you're the experts in that, but I think that's, a really important way to hold us accountable and be transparent with the client.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's,
and
that's
I
just
think
great.
even managing the expectations is huge too.
Yeah.
Like it's educating them on the process. But and just again, kind of like that first even question of like, for us, I feel like even opportunities we've had so many doors open by maybe taking something that we don't, maybe we're not known for, but we know how to do it. We know enough to get that job done. And I feel like there's countless amount of clients that's like, hey, we need you to edit this style of video. And though we can, and though we want to, maybe we feel stronger about this type of video over this, the amount of opportunities I think that have led to it by like kind of just taking on this easier job. It's like, oh, wait, that was so easy to work with this company. Let's give them these bigger jobs now. And I think that's what we're starting to see is, we're starting here with clients kind of showing our worth,
Building the trust.
And now it's like, okay, well, now we're not going to any other company. It's really just kind of making sure scope and budget and everything's aligned. And then at that point, you keep climbing the mountain.
Yeah. And it's all about, keeping that word, doing what you're going to say you're going to do and executing to a very high level.
Yeah. I want to go back to a question that we were asked yesterday. And I know we kind of talked about, man, we need to have a better answer to this, but I think, why not talk about it now is, what do you guys specialize in? Right. And that's tough because a lot of clients want you to specialize in, in their specific industry. And like we've said, we've capitalized on opportunities. Have such a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I feel like our specialization or expertise is just transparent, high quality execution of anything, right? Someone doesn't even have to be video production. I mean, it could be anything, but we've gotten the processes down, and just as the entrepreneurs you guys are, work your tails off.
Yeah.
There's any project that can come up, it's going to be delivered to the highest quality, and we know how to deliver that because we know the visuals. Vince is awesome at the creative.
Right.
The processes John's implemented. So it's kind of interesting because I feel like that's our specialty, right?
Yeah. You could take that and apply that to anything.
Yeah, you could. And it's hard because it sounds a little cliche, but just trying to be genuine, right? It's that's what we do, and it's just tough to articulate that. So
I think to just continue that. So yes, it's like that question always gets asked. It's like, well, what does JV specialize in? And now we got to a point where it's like, video production was our roots. Truly feeling like the experts in that scene, branch into photography, and now offering marketing services, more of this full service. But I think our opportunities where we see beyond the actual work is the relationship.
100%.
I think, we don't look at it like, oh, this project's, we're too good for this project, or like, oh, we only do the big and bad commercials with big budgets. It's like, no, if we see value in the relationship and we know, just like investing your money, if it's a long-term thing and a client's willing to start, I think that is where the opportunity lies. And our ideal client is someone who's willing to someone who wants to establish a long-term relationship. That's our ideal client. And obviously believing in the work we're doing. I think that fulfills the energy, just comes out in what you're doing. But seeing some of our clients start here and then to earn that trust over months and now years,
right?
You almost become friends, and then you end up traveling together. And it's like this once conversation that it was randomly found on Google. Now you're on a first name texting basis, which is for some of our clients that they need something, they'll literally FaceTime me.
Mhm.
It's so casual that you're almost feeling like you work on the same team, yet we're like a vendor to them.
Mhm.
You know, and I know you kind of are the king of relationships.
JV family.
I mean, it's all about family, and we'll get to that
Mhm.
in the last episode. So we can't give any teasers, but
Fair.
to kind of piggyback what you're saying, it's like you couple all those things with also the impact of that mission of the organization, and especially good relationship. They value us, we value them, and then what are they doing to impact? And I think when you put that all together, that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we definitely touched base really, really good on, execution and doing what we say and saying what we do.
Yeah.
I want to circle back, right, to capitalizing on opportunities. Obviously, it's important to respond quickly, but,
Right.
we briefly talked about this, right? We said yes to a lot of different jobs in a lot of different industries. And I feel like there's a ton of value that we learned that we're able to apply to jobs now, right? So can you guys think of any jobs that, happened maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago that you're like, was kind of a foundation for, a bigger job that we did, later down the road. And I think music's like an easy one, right? Because I know that's where like the roots were in music. And some of the stuff, we even talked about last night
Right.
is how we can, use music and our talents in video production to kind of help make an impact on the world from with music. But just curious if there's anything that you guys can think of, like, hey, yeah, we did that job. Maybe it was, maybe it was pro bono job. Maybe it was it was a family friend. And then that kind of led to, a connection, or it led to when we're selling and talking to a client, like, oh, hey, absolutely, I can help you with this project. Here's an example that we did a few years ago.
Right. Well, I know what comes off the top of my head is, the idea. I mean, not so much of the work that actually we did, but like the amount of time that we put into proposals and conversations and ideas that may have not been accepted. And we've kind of lost those, but we've spent all this opportunity cost, like researching and coming up with these ideas, and it may not be the right fit, but later on, a couple years later, you're looking down the road and you're like, wow, like someone's asking me for the same thing. I already have a proposal. We already have ideas that we've done for this client 3 years ago that we can just bring in and refine. It wasn't accepted at that time, but like some people may say like, or may think that, okay, you spend 4 or 5 hours making a proposal, doing all these things, and it's such a waste of time. It's never a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's always a building block to the next thing. So I guess when you say that, I think of like the countless hours that I have spent just like building these proposals, and it leads to, sorry, too high, or sorry, not the right fit, or, ooh, we're going to do this at a later time. But then now you're looking back and I'm like, oh, hey, I know where those examples are. I already built this proposal for something similar 5 years ago. Let me go pull it. And now it's like really getting to, it's like, hey, thanks, past Johnny. I
Or
appreciate that.
you can have that conversation when you're having the initial conversation with the client, rather than, oh, I have to do all this research. You already did all that.
You already
research.
did it. Yeah.
You had to have that knowledge in your head.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
really
I have a specific example.
Yeah.
Early JV was actually our uncle and our grandfather have a barbershop.
Yeah.
So we,
Vince and Gino, shout out, Bridgeport, Chicago. Check them out.
best Italian barbershop. Anyway, straight razor shaves. Gotta throw that in there. So we moved to Bridgeport, got our first studio in like 2016, right?
Yeah,
And our uncle
2016.
Gino, who's my godfather, he's been a mentor to us. Kind of took over family business. He's all that guy. He is an amazing person, but he is nothing but relationships.
All
he
relationships.
knows someone for everything, right? So he said, "Hey guys, I need a commercial, for my barbershop. What can you guys do?" And so I'll never forget. We rented our first, we rented a big boy camera on the Red Raven, which is like ancient now. And so we shot that video. And we just had a bunch of things going on, and then that video, because of his network, connected us. So that was, I don't even know if he paid us. Maybe, I don't think so.
No.
But it was, that one connected us to a buddy of his that owned like an Italian deli, and it was like a couple $100 job, right? But I felt like honestly, after that video, I feel like I blinked and it's like just been a blur of videos.
I mean,
Like we're here now. Like
Gotta
that
start
video, it was
somewhere.
like a catalyst of like, we started here, we kind of experimented. We had the reins, and then we did that video, and I feel like it was just been like, it just like anything. It's just like someone else sees it, and the work, budgets got bigger, and then you start realizing it, and then we kind of got that first music festival, North Coast.
Yeah.
Remember that? We freaked out, getting that opportunity. We've never done a music festival, and then we said yes. And then once we accepted that, it was like all we did was that because, we executed. So
Right.
I think those like early 2017, 2018 gigs, like we didn't really know where it would go, but we just kind of were like, yeah, we can do it. Yeah,
Yep.
we did a barbershop commercial. We did like an Italian deli commercial. And then it's like 3-day music festival. Like it was just like this like hosh posh until, and then at that point we took off in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the idea of cooking. If we're gonna keep the theme of food, I mean, obviously we all might be a little hungry over here.
Yeah.
If you know how to cook, you could cook a variety of dishes. And I think the root skill is people, and the root skill is creativity and videography and photography. So if you have that, you can adapt that to so many different areas. We say this with our clients. When we go and we're at a barbershop, well, for that day, what are we?
Barbers,
And then we go and we do a cooking show, and in that day, what are we?
chefs.
We do something for the church, and in that moment, it's like
Yeah,
we see through
embody
the-
it.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like we're like chameleons. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's awesome about what we do. Whether you're doing photography, videography, we truly embody the client and what they are. Like when we did dental videos, like we put our heads in the mind of a dentist. This is who we are today.
I think you even wore a little smock too.
I mean, whatever I got to do
Little
to
veneers.
blend in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I
Well,
guess.
real quick, I think, and then I know we're wrapping up, but you didn't relate it back to chefs. You can give a good chef the most basic ingredients, and I guarantee they'll make an amazing meal. That's kind of how I feel like we can tailor all the different videos. Give us this type of video you need, boom, we'll cook it out. Give us these variables for this event, we can make it
A
happen.
little salt and pepper, a little paprika.
Right. Chef needs, chef knows the basics. How,
Yeah.
The heat, the time, the temperature.
Right. The process.
Yeah, that's awesome. With that, I think that's a good place to wrap. Thank you guys for listening, John and Vince. Thank you guys for all the insights. I'm sure it's super, super helpful. So looking forward to chatting to everyone at the next episode.